Welcome to Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a weekly podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and my co-host Dennis Simpson as we discuss the history, facts, people, places, events, lots more surrounding Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. Visit the website at hotspringsvillageinsideout.com. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live at kvre.com.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, where I got it right. You know, you'd think I'd be able to do that, right, Randy?
Mm-hmm.
On this cold, not bitterly cold, but cold January morning, we are in the 2022 year and things have changed. And we have Mr. Jeffrey Atkins as our guest again. Jeffrey, how you doing?
I'm great, Dennis. How are you?
Quite well indeed. Quite well indeed. And we're going to talk about how to get a piece of the village. And as I understand, and maybe I'm mistaken, but there's about three ways. Most people are thinking about home ownership. So when you buy a home in the village, you are then part of the POA. Is that correct, Jeff? Tell me how we get there.
You become a member of the POA when you accept your deed for your property. Yes.
I'm going to split hairs. Is that optional?
No, it is not.
Well, but I mean, if I own a home and I'm not paying my POA dues, you can't keep me from coming and going.
They cannot keep you from coming and going, but they can keep you from doing just about everything else.
So I wouldn't have water. I wouldn't have sewer. I wouldn't have, but I could, yeah.
Well, there's some legal intricacies to that. As far as if they don't pay their assessments, can you cut off their water? Probably not, as long as they're paying their water bill. So, but I don't know if we want to get into those kind of details.
You're right, but I couldn't use the fitness center. I couldn't use the golf course. I couldn't any of that stuff.
Your gate card would be inactive and
right. And how much
you would not have a good time.
You would not have a good time. And how much is it going to cost me for a POA due? And by the way, I hear people call me all the time and say, this is not a HOA. This is a POA. What's the difference between a HOA and a POA?
Well, there's really not. It's just what you want to call it. An HOA is typically homeowners association is when you have a situation where every piece of property has a home on it. And a property owners association, I think the distinction was made because there will probably never be a time where every piece of property has a home on it. So
I hope not.
You're not here because you have a home. You're here because you have a property.
So
you are a member because you have a property.
So the POA dues are going to cost me what?
Well, they're not technically dues. They're technically assessments.
Assessments, right.
And technically it's an annual assessment that you can pay monthly as long as you keep in good favor with the property owners association.
And that is how much?
And that is $90 times 12 per year. So most people pay by the month, $90 a month. But if you do the multiplication on that, what is that? $1,080 a year is the annual rate for an improved property, meaning home, but really technically a water meter.
So if I have a water meter on a piece of property, I'm going to pay the homeowner, right? The homeowner rate, right?
You're going to pay the homeowner assessment for that part. If you have an adjacent lot, or if your house is built on two lots, you have one water meter, you would pay one improved and one unimproved, which is $43 a month. And I really don't want to do the math on that in my head. It would be 480 and 36, 516.
Okay, so 516. So for a guy that owns more than one property in the village, you'd think you'd know those numbers a little better.
Well, I know the monthly numbers. I'm not going to pay by the year.
Okay, but let me come back to this real quick. These numbers are new because we're in 2022. So last year the prices were not this. They've gone up $20 a pop.
Well, the unimproved rate last year was $39.97. And it went to 43, and that's 516 a year. I may have said 518, but it's 516. And the improved rate is now 90, and I don't remember exactly what it was because, in the scheme of things, it wasn't as important to me personally because it wasn't a big deal. But
the answer is that the homeowner rate has gone up significantly more than the individual property lot owner went up, right?
Right. And I'm just looking it up. It was $69.26 for an improved property last year.
So it was $69.26 or $70, and now it's $90.
Right.
Okay.
It went basically from almost just over 69 to 90.
Okay.
And
So
from 39.97 to 43.
so I can buy a home,
Yes.
live here in the village, pay
Yes.
my $90 a month assessments, have full access to everything. This is a
Right.
carded gate for the main gates will let me through, because if I did or didn't pay my POA dues or assessments,
Right.
but the minor gates, I could get through those. I could
Well,
play
if you have a
shuffleball.
if you have a gate card, you can get through those. You have to go to the POA and get a gate card. So highly recommended. by the
Randy,
way.
would you encourage that?
Yes, I would. And there's a cost attached, by the way. It's
Like
a
10 bucks or
one-time, it's a
something.
one-time fee, so I was told. So,
Well, it's a
you gotta-
one-time fee unless you break it or lose it.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Correct.
And then at some point we may have a different card, a different style card or different technology, but
Right.
we've been using basically the same cards for over 20 years now.
I was going to
Vendor-
say that HID card, HID card that we're using is about 20 years old.
Mhm.
So let's say I don't want to buy a home yet. I'm not ready for that commitment,
Okay.
but I'm going to step back down and I want to buy a lot. Okay. So, and by the way, let me go back to the house real quick. Now that we're in 2022, I've never owned property in the village before. I closed in 2022. How much does it cost me from the POA to become a member? There's $150 transfer. And then what else?
Well, what you'll pay to the POA is a $150 transfer fee. That's for the deed transfer fee.
Mhm.
And then you will have, if you've never owned property in the village before, then it's a $1,500
$1,500.
for,
Okay. So
yeah.
there's a buy-in fee.
It's called a buy-in fee. It's new in 2022, and it's $1,500 for the homeowner.
And that's typically for most people, because I hope that most people are going to close at a title company. And because that $1,500 is going to be in their final closing, they won't just write a check to the POA. The title company typically will write those checks and get it all done for you, right?
Well, I haven't seen a case yet on exactly how they're going to handle it, but I think that
Okay.
would be probably an efficient way, because the title companies also collect the first 2 months of your assessment typically,
Mhm.
so that it gives you time to get into the system without being late.
They get you in good standing so you can move right
Right,
in and
right.
enjoy all the
Right.
amenities.
And also the title company will take care of getting a deed to the POA so that the POA knows.
Okay. So that's how I buy a house.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to buy a lot. Okay. Which is where Randy was. And so I buy a piece of property. I close at a title company. If I close at a title company, the title company will collect the 2 months of assessments, and they'll collect the transfer fee, and they'll collect the new buy-in fee. So how much is the transfer fee again?
Well, the transfer fee doesn't matter on what property it is or anything. It doesn't matter if you've owned property before or not. It's $150 per property every time, regardless.
Okay.
Lot,
And then
house doesn't matter, valuation doesn't matter, nothing matters. It's
right. But the
$150.
buy-in fee for a house is
lot,
$1,500, but
right.
the buy-in fee for a lot is how much?
$250 in 2022. Now
$250.
in the presentations that we've seen, those were suggested to go up. The Fred F had a suggestion on what the buy-in fee should be that the board adopted really without any discussion, public discussion at least. It was on the fee schedule for 2022. I suspect, just like any other fee, it's going to go up. That was the proposal from Fred F. So there's no reason to not think that those are going to go up.
Well, and I want to just sideline here. We're covering the specifics and the details very clearly in case there's people that are inside or out wanting to know more. I have a very strong feeling, I think you do too, that the buy-in fee may be challenged. And so that
Right.
may or may not.
We
may or may
did a
not.
video on that anybody can look up, and I believe that was been posted.
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's going to be subject to legal challenge. Somebody's going to challenge it.
Let me ask the
I have
difference.
no doubt in that.
Let me ask.
And it may be me. So who knows?
Who knew? Who knew?
Because I think somebody will eventually, and if there's going to be a challenge, it's better for the POA if it's sooner rather than later, because you don't want them to get all the money and start spending it recklessly or even validly, and then have to refund it all. So it'd be better for the POA. It'd be better if the issue was resolved sooner rather than later.
And I want to I don't want to get distracted here, but I want to split hairs. What's the difference between the buy-in fee and the benefit I gain and the deed transfer or the transfer fee? Because why are those separate?
Well, the transfer fee is and we've mentioned this on a previous episode, but the deed transfer fee has been around for almost 20 years. And it's just grown over the years. And it went from 125 last year to 150 this year. And the POA sees that as a way, I mean, obviously to raise revenue, but to cover their cost of doing the work to get a new owner on that property.
But when you and I were here 20 years ago, it cost $8. Well, first it was free, and then they charged $8. So it's gone from $8 to 150 over the last 20 years.
Right.
I don't know that their costs have increased that much, but yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
So we could buy a home, we could buy a lot.
Yeah.
Or how else could I be? And I want to split the hairs here because Ernie mentioned this the other day, and we didn't. Ernie at the Cooper engineer. Right. I don't want to be a visitor, and I want to be a guest. I don't want to be a visitor or a guest. I want to be a property owner, so I get all the amenities. What else could I do?
Well, the other option is to do an assignment of privileges, and we actually did that for Randy before he actually bought property, so that a person that is assigned a membership is considered the full member by the POA.
And is this like a lease or like a rental or what?
Well, it depends on the arrangement that you have. For the ones that I do, it's basically a lease. It's like leasing an apartment. This was something Cooper put in the declaration specifically so that, and then I was told that they used it as a sales mechanism. They said, if you can buy here now, give us your money today, and you can assign your membership rights to somebody else until you're actually here and using them.
And you can swap money for that too, right? So you could get money for that and basically offset your POA assessments.
It gives a property owner a reason to hold on to the property and not let it go delinquent, or maybe not, compete in the marketplace for sales with other property owners. Keeps the lots off the market potentially. There's some reasons that it was good for Cooper, and there's reasons it's good for the POA. We had a lot of people that used to buy really cheap lots out here in the village. And when NRP came in the early 2000s, NRP bought those people out. They didn't have a lot of skin in the game because they had paid $300 or $500 for a lot, or they'd been given a lot and they were paying the assessments, and NRP waved $1 in front of them, and those people took it. And we lost a lot of golf revenue because of that, because those people would coming from Benton or Hot Springs to come out here to play golf. Well, all of a sudden they didn't have a lot anymore to play golf on, because they had taken the $4,000 or $8,000 from NRP. And so we saw a pickup at that time of people that were doing assigned memberships. So it's just like being the deeded property owner, except that you don't vote in the elections and you're not technically responsible for the assessments. So
here, one of the reasons I wanted to have this show is because I imagine, and I see this all the time, and there's a little bit of BS talk at some of the golf courses where the guys will sit around and BS and pay off their bets and, that kind of stuff. But one guy says, man, I love playing out here. It's really beautiful. This is awesome. I want to come out here and start playing. And the guy goes, hey, I tell you what, I got a lot / timeshare / never ending obligation that I will give to you.
Right.
And all you have to do is pick up and pay the POA dues. Right. Sounds like a great deal.
Sounds like a great deal.
This guy who wants to play golf, he's from Benton or Little Rock or Hot Springs or wherever. And Randy had alluded to, something like that he comes in with a deed, and he's got this free deed that the guy has given him.
Yes.
And he walks into the POA and he goes, I need to register this. And they say, okay, that's $150 for a transfer fee.
Mm-hmm.
Have you owned property in the village before? No. Okay. There's a $250 transfer, buy-in fee. So this free lot is costing him $400 the day he walks in the door before he pays $1 of dues. Right. Am I mistaken?
Before he pays $1 of dues, before he pays for the ID card, before he pays for his window sticker, before he pays for his deed transfer. Well, technically, if you got the lot for free, you would not have to pay a tax stamp, but you would probably want to record that deed, and that would cost you money.
At the courthouse.
Because you need to show a recorded deed to the POA in order to establish your ownership with them. They don't want you walking in with an unrecorded deed. They will give you a temporary, at least they used to give you a temporary ID card if you walked in with an unrecorded deed, but they would not give you permanent membership cards until you had a recorded deed, because otherwise we could just trade pieces of paper back and forth and, pretend to be, hey, Dennis is the new owner now, get him his ID cards. Well, we didn't actually sell anything, or somebody didn't actually record anything. They wanted it recorded. And
Makes
this
a lot
was
of
probably
sense.
now that they get their $400 in fees, they might not care. I don't know.
Maybe not. Well, so let me go here. So I get a free lot that cost me $475 just
Right.
to get free.
Right.
And then I start paying my POA dues.
$516 a year this year.
$516 a year.
Yes.
So my free golf is not exactly free golf anymore. My free tax lot.
You're into about $1,000 already before you even get started. The other thing is, if it's not a free lot and you paid real money for the lot, there's that real money that you paid for the lot. And if you're paying for real money for a lot, you probably would want to close with a title company and make sure you had good title. And, it's close to $1,000 if you look at both sides of the transaction, between the closing fees for the seller and the buyer, all the other fees that are involved, the title search, the title insurance, it adds up really quick.
Well, we're kind of off in the weeds about this, but since we're here, let's finish up the weeds.
Okay.
One of the issues that we talk about is that when we're sitting, golf buddies sitting around the course, and let me give you this deed. Number one, I give you this deed. There's no certainty that it has quite a clear title and can be built on and used for anything else at that point. There could be a couple of $1,000s worth of legal fees attached to clearing that title. So I could actually, because, the two owners back, Joe got divorced and never had his wife sign off on it, that kind of thing. Right.
Right. Yeah. You've got to be real careful with that. And where it becomes a problem is like, well, I got it for free. What difference does it make? Well, at some point you're going to want to get rid of it so that you don't have to pay the POA dues anymore. And that could be if you moved away. It could be if you had a back injury or your health does not allow you to play golf anymore. It was a free lot, but how are you going to get rid of it? Are you going to give it to somebody else for free? Then you might not care if you have clear title, if you can find somebody else that will take it. There's some potential issues there. And of course, the POA is going to want you to continue to pay your assessments as long as you're the deeded owner. And they can come after you legally for not paying those assessments.
Well, and let's come back to that too. A lot of people would say, so what? I'm not paying $50 a month or something for the POA dues assessment. I'm just going to let it lapse and I'm going to whatever. And then, I don't know, maybe a year later, maybe, 15 months later, all of a sudden your credit score drops 50 points.
Yeah. I don't know if the POA is currently doing credit reporting.
Okay.
But they could send it to collections and those guys could do credit reporting. And, the POA may not foreclose on you or sue for the back assessments right away, but the collection company might. And the POA itself is not doing foreclosures right now, to my knowledge, but they have in the past.
Yeah.
And they probably will at some point again in the future. And right now they're leaving it up to the Commissioner of State Lands to take care of it for them.
Well, but any collection company worth its salt will turn that information over because that's one of their, that's one of their
certainly
deals.
The risk that they could, yes.
Jeff, talk about the difference between access or privilege, and those might not be the right words, but so I'm a property owner, so I can just walk onto any golf course and I can play golf to my heart's desire, and I don't pay a dime.
No, you pay the green fees,
exactly,
and the cart fees, the trail fees, and everything. But basically, what it is you have the same standing as a lot owner or homeowner or as a property owner. You have the same standing. So you can use the online tee time systems. You can do your membership card as an assigned member is the exact same as a deeded property owner. And also keep in mind that many people here in the village own their property in some kind of entity, such as a revocable living trust or an LLC. And technically those memberships are assigned memberships as well, because the trust actually owns the property. As an example, the trust owns the property. You as an individual don't own the property. And so the trust puts the husband and wife that are the beneficiaries of the trust as the assigned member. So technically, those are assigned memberships as well, and that's one reason why this part of the declaration is so valuable to the POA, because otherwise you wouldn't have that without the board spending a lot of time and energy coming up with a bunch of rules around this. The declaration gives a mechanism for this to occur, for a trustee to be a member of the POA.
So I rent an Airbnb and I come and I play golf. I'm not a member. I have no membership privileges, but I could still go and be a guest and play on a course.
Yeah.
So
at guest rates,
at a guest rate.
That's
yes.
my point. So the difference is what?
It can vary from as little as $20, depending on course and time of day and time of year, up to $40 or $50 or $60
per round.
Per round, yes. So October is probably one of the highest rate months here because it's when the weather's the nicest. So it's not hot, it's not cold. Also, the April-May timeframe are when the golf rates are the highest, and that's when you see the biggest differences between the guest rate and the member rate. Also, there's very little difference for a member between, say, Isabella and DeSoto, but for a guest, there is a bigger difference. So if you're going to be playing Isabella and Granada, those are much more expensive for guests relative to a member rate, because it's only $1 higher at Isabella, I think, than DeSoto for a member, but it's $20 or $30 higher for a guest sometimes.
Well, and let me wrap up. Let's come to the chase here. If I wanted to lease a lot, where would I do this?
Well,
does anyone know?
You might do it with Jeff. You can do it with anybody that has properties. Actually, the POA does this. The POA charges over $500 per year, or 500. I think it's 500, or just over $500 per year. And they have lots in their inventory. Of course, they have many. And they do assign memberships. I don't think they actively advertise it currently, but they will do them. And they still have people that do it for over $500 a year. One thing that you need to be certain of, if you're so inclined to do something like this, is be careful who you do it with, because if it's a guy in Florida that's not paying his assessments, that would cause you a problem. And I've actually had people call me recently where that's occurred. I have a website, hsvmemberships.com, or you can call me directly. Just look me up in Google. You'll find me. I usually come up, if you put in Hot Springs Village membership in Google, I'm one of the first one, if not the first one, that shows up. So, and I've been here 20 years doing this. Nobody does more of them than me. I don't even think the POA does as many as I do.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
They do own a lot more lots, though.
And these assignments typically last a year, Jeff?
Yeah, because the POA had a rule in place that the assignment needed to be for a period of a year. In other words, they didn't want people, and it's very understandable, they don't want people swapping out every 2 weeks.
Well,
right?
And they don't want people coming in and just renting for the summer.
Right.
Hey, I'll think from April to October, and then I'm dropping my lease. Right.
It's an assignment of membership. It's not a guest pass. It's not like a super duper guest pass. They really want you to be committed and have a longer term. So there is a rule that they have to be on there for a year. And so that's why I do 1 year. And of course they're renewable. It's not, there's no commitment. It's like leasing an apartment or a storage rental. There's no commitment. You do the first year, and if you don't want to do it again, you don't. And then you don't have to worry about selling the property, and then you don't have to worry about the $516 of assessments every year. You don't have to worry about paying the property taxes. You don't have to worry, just show up and play and pay for what you play.
So it's basically membership or ownership that you can turn on and turn off.
Turn on and turn off. And it gives a lot of flexibility. And it creates a situation where the POA doesn't have as much overhead as far as doing deed transfers back and forth. Like used to, there was a guy that did a lot of deed transfers back and forth to accomplish the same purpose. Mm-hmm. He was basically doing leases, but he was transferring deeds back and forth. That created a lot of work for the POA. So it's a lot cleaner way to do it. It's very efficient and effective.
But you think of guys, I know some guys that are, I'm not a golfer. I love golf, and they take multiple trips. A group of guys take multiple trips every year and just play golf after golf after golf after golf. Right. And it doesn't take much.
No.
Doesn't take much to add up in a hurry the greens fees that somebody
Right.
could
It can
save
get,
if
now,
they want to play on the courses there in the village and they want to do it with some regularity.
exactly. And, the people that have these, they tend to come more often. And keep in mind that they're supporting all the golf courses. They're supporting assessments on lots.
Airbnbs.
They're supporting Airbnbs, Dennis, the golf course restaurants, the local restaurants, the local economy. It really goes a long way. You just think about it. Are we better off with a couple of hundred people a year extra coming in here, or a couple thousand extra people a year coming in here and spending a week or two and spending money? It really helps out the local economy, I think. I think we'd really surprised if we saw the true economic impact.
I think we would. Now, if we went to HSV memberships and we were going to release a lot, would it be $500 like the POA charges?
Oh, no, I'm charging $374 now. There are some fees involved to get started that I pay the POA. I pay the property taxes. I pay the POA assessments out of that $374. And so it's cheaper than the POA. The POA changed their model a few years back because they were at 300 or 315, somewhere in there. They wanted each membership to support a whole lot as far as assessments. So that's why they priced it at 500, is because at the time the annual assessment was about $480, or just on, 375, 380, 475, 480. And they wanted one membership to cover the assessments.
We have no association. We come to you and we lease a lot. I lease a lot.
Yeah.
And I pay the 400 a month, 400 a year, or whatever with the fees.
Yes.
374. Does Diane have privileges too, or is it?
No, it's a per person thing.
Okay.
So now, with if you and Diane both had a membership and you both signed up at the same time, dependent children are included, which is basically the same rule that they use for homeowners.
Really?
If you have a household, say a family that lives in a house and they have dependent children, those children are included. They have dependent cards, or they can get dependent cards, and that's the same rule for this. The rules are the same, whether you're a family or whatever. Now, if Dennis, in the situation you just mentioned, if you had a membership, your parents and grandparents could get a family member card. Your children or grandchildren could get a family member card, but it doesn't go sideways. It
just goes up and down.
It goes up and down. It doesn't go spouses, and it doesn't go brothers, sisters. So it's a little strange.
And this is for a lease?
For anything.
Really?
If you are a deeded property owner and you're the only person on that deed, then it doesn't really go to the spouses.
Is this, and I'm chasing down a question I've always wondered, is this a POA rule, or is this in the bylaws and the whatever?
It's in, I think it may be in their bylaws. Of course it's not in the declaration. It's at some point down that list of rules, as you go through I think it's in the bylaws, actually. And it's something that, was developed years ago, and has not really changed that much. It's gotten a little cleaner, because the assignments they had these other rules that they just kind of made up that had to be on an annual basis. January 1st. Well, what happens in December and January at the POA? It's already busy. You don't want all these people coming in and renewing every year, and adding more work to the POA. So family cards work up and down, and this is for any property owner. Family cards work up and down. They don't go sideways to brothers and sisters.
Your typical customer, if there is such a thing, a husband and wife?
No. I do have that situation. Typically, it's golfing buddies that want to come out here from a fairly local area. But I do have customers from all over the country. I had a customer from Hawaii one time.
Define fairly local, just the greater Little Rock area, or what?
No, I have customers, Sheridan, Pine Bluff, Texarkana.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Texarkana, really, yeah. They'll come up here for a day. I know guys from Northeast Arkansas that'll come down here for a weekend. Russellville, Conway, it's a pretty wide area. I used to drive here every weekend, twice a weekend from Little Rock, and it was an hour.
Yeah.
But would you rather drive an hour and play at Magellan or Isabella, or drive 20 minutes and play at Heinemann?
Which is now closed.
Now closed.
Or Rock Creek. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's really a lot of incentive. And of course, there's Silver Springs that's in Haskell area, just outside of Benton.
Saw that.
It's going to 9 holes. They're building houses on part what was originally, I think, the front 9. And then there was that golf course in Benton that closed, Long Hills, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Long Hills, right there beside my parents, actually.
And then we had the golf course that was down on Highway 7 before you get to downtown. I can't even remember what it was called.
Belvedere.
It went through all kinds of problems. I mean, these might have been wonderful. They might have been good business operations someplace else, but they had Hot Springs Village in their backyard.
Yeah.
They had a lot of competition.
Well,
And, it's hard to play at Belvedere when you can go to Balboa, 5 minutes further.
Yeah. And play 8 other courses. And that was one of the things I always said about DeMonte. DeMonte, I think, is a gem. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. For most people that don't know, a lot of the lots here in the village may be 1/3 acre or 1/4 acre. Everything in DeMonte is a 1/2 acre that I know of. And it's gorgeous. And it's what, $600 a month? And across the street, it's 45 across the street.
I don't know if it's 600, but it's over 500. And, if I was retired and I wanted to play golf 3 or 4 days a week, I've looked at Diamante. I mean, I think it's a great value, even at $500 a month, because you're not paying green fees. That includes green fees, if I understand right.
Really? I thought it had a food credit and some green fees, but I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to speculate on things.
Very clearly, Randy, it's time for us to get somebody from Diamante on.
It's time to get somebody from Diamante. They've really come around. They've really done a lot of good stuff now that they're owned by themselves, right?
Yeah.
Now that they're out on their own, they've done really great. But keep in mind, you don't just have that assessment every month. You still have the $90 or $43 POA assessment.
Yeah,
right.
So my blood.
Yeah.
No.
So, it's hard for a lot of people to spend that extra $500 a month when you've got Isabella across the street or Granada,
which is gorgeous. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful, Diamante is a wonderful golf course.
Well, I tell you what, we're about to have John Paul on again, and we'll ask him about that simply because he is one of the owners, and I think he's on the board or something for the Diamante POA. But yeah, they have split off separately. And for those of you that are listening and don't know anything, Hot Springs Village, 9 golf courses. One of those golf courses is technically a private community club, a country club type deal inside there. It was owned by Country Clubs of America, if I'm not mistaken. What's that?
Club Court. And Cooper. They were co-owners.
And they spun that off and basically just became their own entity, and gorgeous place. But there's no argument. I don't think, Jeff, it's the zenith of the village. I mean, it's the nicest courses, and it's everything. Randy, are there any other questions we've missed? Have we?
No, sir.
Good.
Good night, Dennis.
Good night, Dennis. Hot Springs Village, Inside Out. Dennis Simpson, Randy Cantrell, and our common guest, not that common, Jeff Adkins. Great to have everybody again. Join us next time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by visiting our website, hsvinsideout.com, and tell a friend.